Okay, we're going to come up with a new PPC strategy that you can use today, specifically looking for people that are already asking for recommendations on Facebook, like, hey, what's a good golf course to go into North Phoenix nowadays? What do you like, guys? Or what's the new hot club? I just moved into town. And you're the club owner who wants that person to come to you. This strategy here that I'm going to give you today that I've used on numerous occasions already and tested and know it works and have the best understanding of the quirks and stuff that make it work better than just starting out on your own, even if you had the strategy. I'm going to give you the strategy and all that information today so you can use PPC to your advantage to get that person looking for a recommendation to come to you, and it'll be easy also to follow at the same time. One of the easier strategies that I have for doing PPC ads that just works basically every single time that you do it, assuming that you're in a market where it will apply, but most markets, doesn't matter product or service, B2B, B2C, it all works. So you'll walk away 99% sure here that you'll walk away with a strategy here that you could come up with that you can use to make money today as soon as you're done watching. So anyway, targeting users looking for recommendations on Facebook in real time. With the real-time aspect being a little bit of a misnomer, it's not real time, but I really do mean recommendations here. People are asking for advice. What is the best restaurant in town? We're going to be able to get in front of that person basically almost right away. Depending on how attentive and how our system is actually set up for someone like that has a restaurant, you will have to have a little bit more response because there's a little bit of a manual process. This could be automated, but it's a little different than somebody who's looking to target somebody what's the best software company out there. But long story short, it's the same process if you're selling software or if you're a restaurant owner on how this actual system works to make you money. Okay, so first off, just as a quick background, Google advertising makes $100 billion a year US because they have a monopoly on getting in front of the right person at the perfect time. Not just the right time, the perfect time. And so if you're searching on Google for something, it's the perfect time to market to them, right? Everybody, this is, key, clear information everybody knows basically. So the search advertising specifically. Now, another type of advertising, though, that people don't think of that's basically the same, but Google also monopolizes, which Google is a monopoly now. They say they're not, but they basically are because they've bought up all the most important ad inventory online, and all advertising's coming online. Targeted display advertising through Google's display network that they have. So basically, through your Google Ads account targeting, other than Google.com, where you can run banner advertising, the typical banner ads you see on most websites out there, Google has their hands in that too. And when I say, why is it that you're asking yourself, Corey, why is that considered something that's also associated and similar to the search ads? Well, it is, and it's a perfect time type of advertising because you can get in front of somebody if they're looking for, information or what are the best life insurance policies out there. Well, that question you're not asking yourself if you're not already buying an insurance policy. So all you can, at that particular time, there's two things that can be done there. One of which you can have an ad on the page that reviews and gives you information on the best insurance policies out there, which one's right for you, right there on the sidebar. But more than that, Google collects data on the person that searched for that, for one. Also, the person who read the article in which the Google Display Network ad is on, so they'll collect user data on you there, and then they sell that back to somebody who then can later on make sure that another search ad is likely to show up for them, as long as they're searching for another keyword that's on their pre-approved list. But more specifically, if that person then, after looking for life insurance, assuming they don't buy right away, they go to CNN.com, because a lot of people do research, but they don't respond right away. They have time to do research. They do the research, and then they buy on Friday when they get paid or whatever. After they talk to their wife, they got it narrowed down, then they buy. In that short window of time between the time that they think they know what they want already, and they stop the research, and they actually whip out their credit card or buy, you can interject yourself in that process. This is why also Google makes so much money. So I can bid on that opportunity, which Google now knows that person is directly in market. They searched for it, or they were on a website that explains how to buy it and what you should buy, or a combination thereof. And now they go to CNN.com during that short window between the time that they researched it and decided, and then they actually go to buy, which then they'll type in the brand name of the company they want to buy. They'll go to the site and then buy directly. You can actually get on CNN.com during that short window and have your ad show up there. So that's also perfect time advertising. I would call a perfect time advertising opportunity. That's similar. It's not quite as good as having your banner ad on the actual research page where they're researching and reading, in which they trust the information already, where you can have a banner ad that says, don't get ripped off don't fall for common scams, life insurance scams. Read this before you buy any life insurance policy. And you're just hijacking the user's attention, and then you can get them onto your site, which now after 2 or 3 more things that you can get them to do slowly, what I call seducing them, with an article and then another piece of information to read, and then they can go on to read about your product. You can seduce them and get them to buy from you. You're just diverting their attention slowly in a way that they're not going to have their guard up, to the point where you actually can hard sell them once you've got seduced them enough. So anyway, long story short, Google has most of it, but there's a third way that you can do a similar type of advertising that's set up to target people at the perfect time that A, is in market, and B, they're actually open and perceptive to the information right then and there. So why would somebody go to Facebook and ask to all their friends, what is the best restaurant in town? Because they respect then, just like why Yelp has a big business, $1 billion plus business, is because they don't always trust Google, and a lot of times there's not enough information on Google for something like that. So what do? And they also trust what their friends say more than Yelp, if they can do it. So you can advertise on Yelp. I don't believe in Yelp advertising. It sucks, just pretty much. Just stay away from it. But they're looking for a review from their friends, which that is actually a good opportunity to get in front of that person, if you can get in front of them. The problem is they ask, and so there's no actual advertising product to get in front of them right then where somebody's responding. Wish you could, but there's a second best thing that you can do, and you can advertise to that person literally seconds after they search it. So they're not going to immediately go to that club or whatever that you're trying to get them to go to. If they're asking about what's the hottest club in Dallas, you can advertise immediately. If they stay on Facebook, then bam, right away they see your ad for the club and its ratings and its review. I would, instead of just saying we're the hottest club in town, which you could do, we're the hottest club in town, and then you can send them to an article on your site or a third-party site that reviewed your site that explains why it actually is the best club in Dallas. And you can actually do it with this system I'm going to give you here. But people ask for advice. They're going to value that advice in that situation more than Google, probably, and more than Yelp or any place else. And along with that, that gives you a high indication that the person is actually serious, because if they're going to look for a review from Yelp, maybe they'll go to the club, maybe they won't. But if they're going to ask for advice, now it's just like if you're saying, okay, I'm going to do 100 push-ups today, and you tell your husband or wife that you're going to do that, or tell your wife you're going to do that, or what have you, or I'm going to lose 10 pounds this month. Just by saying it, you don't want to feel stupid that you didn't follow through, and now you look weak. So now you have to, well, if you're going to ask your friends what's the best club, and then next Monday they say, hey, how was the club? And you're like, sorry I wasted your time, or no, I was sick. Now you don't want to sound stupid. So that's not only, So that person's more likely than to actually probably be a buyer. So that value of the user and knowing that that user searched for that, and now that any advertising that shows up for that person shortly after is going to be a high value to you, specifically higher than anybody else, and you can get more return from that ad space than anybody else. Therefore, you can make money from it. So anyway, so Google is still king, but there's, like I said, a lot of opportunities where Google isn't going to be the most valuable thing you can do in your market. This is what I'm showing you here is. The second best is to actually you can use this method where you can collect the data on who wants what, which, you know, they're looking for advice from their friends, like I told you, without having to pay the premium of the Google advertising, because the Google advertising is super expensive, and because this strategy is outside the box, you're actually doing something that nobody else in your market's going to be doing. You're going to have an opportunity that converts the users now more valuable than what they would have been on Google itself. And that's going to be cheaper than what it would be on Google itself advertising to that person of more known value to you. And then at the same time, the third thing is, you'll have multiple shots to advertise to that person you know is of the highest value to you at the same time, and at the cheapest value to advertise to that person. You can advertise to them cheaply several times after to that person, and that it's, you know, likely then that you're going to be able to influence that person enough to actually take advantage of your informational awareness of that person now likely to go to you or somebody that you compete against in the near short term or near future. So, and what I mean by that is, when somebody searches for that, you can have an ad that shows up on Facebook literally right after, almost, or the next day or the next few days, but it can show up on Facebook. I'm going to talk about what, you know, if they're on Facebook, you'll be able to keep showing up for them on Facebook. If they're on Facebook, they're probably going to be on Facebook again before they buy, because a Facebook user is a Facebook user is a Facebook user. But you can also, with that information that I just gave you, you can use it to advertise to that same person on Twitter and LinkedIn too, to expand the strength of this opportunity itself. So overall, in all those places, generally it's going to be cheaper than showing up for a person on Google search that's looking for what you sell. But again, the main thing is, if you are a club promoter, that person's probably not even going to go to Google and ask what's the best club. A lot of times they're just going to ask their friends if they can't get anything. Then, or they'll get a response probably from somebody, otherwise they wouldn't have asked. But otherwise, they may not ask anything at all. So, not to say that you can't use Google for anything. I recommend doing everything that works here. This is probably, for quite a few of you guys out there, the best, most profitable thing you actually can do for your business as far as pay-per-click advertising or online advertising strategies that you could find. So anyway, a little bit more information about how this actually works. Here's the actual system that you're going to be able to effectively, like I said, somebody's asking for advice. Who should I buy from? Knowing that person's asking who in your market to buy from, how you're going to be able to get on in front of them with a Facebook ad after they've asked, now knowing that person's going to be in the very near future buying either from you or your competitors. Here's the system. First, you're going to use a social listening software. You can Google for that. There's mention.com. There's a few others, some better than others, of course. I don't have a top recommendation for you, so try several. Because a lot of them are crappy. Use social listening software to listen to all requests in your market in real time. So basically what these social listening softwares do is, if you sell a merchant software, let's say for business, and what you're going to do in these software is you can type in the keyword merchant software. Anytime someone mentions merchant software on Facebook or on Twitter or LinkedIn or on the web, just as a side note, it'll actually pop up basically in real time, or definitely within the day, that they, all the people, mentioning this, that with the verbiage in their social media posts. And so then you can see if you can read them all. Not all of them will be requests for a recommendation, but some will. And that gives you the ability to see who's requesting, okay? That's the first step. The second is you have someone in marketing write down the user IDs of the people that are asking for a recommendation, at least on a daily basis. You could do this to whatever insane amount of or rate that you would like. But if they're looking for a club, if you don't have that person's information or know that that person's asking within like an hour, you're probably missing out on most of the opportunity. Where if it's a software company, if you get it within the day, that person's information, knowing that they asked that day, you're probably still in good shape. But basically what happens is somebody says, do you know a good merchant software out there to use? What would you use? And the person in marketing sees that with the social listening software, then you could right click on the user's profile picture photo, and then you could find the user, it's called actually user ID of that person. Now you've got a unique serial number or signature of the user as per how Facebook gives each user on our system a unique identifying number that you can use to cross-reference them in some advertising that'll show up next, which is next what you do. 3, create a custom audience of user ID. So on Facebook, you can advertise, you can target people by keyword or by interest, stuff like that, but you can also target based upon a list of email addresses or phone numbers. You can also target based upon mobile IDs, but specifically also these user IDs. So just by having the user ID, if you upload that into a custom audience list, now you can see where this is going. You could target that person who was just asking for advice what to buy. Very, very qualified user. Problem is you got to have 100 people minimum on your list. So for privacy purposes, they don't want you to be able to target an individual and say, hey, Frank, I know you were interested. It's kind of creepy. So what you do, if you don't have 100, put 99 fake ones on there. I know that's a black hat strategy, but do what you got to do. It could be 99 fake ones and then one real one. I've seen people, let's just say I've seen people do this before. It works. And then that way, when you add just one on there right away, you're eligible to advertise to that person. Okay, that's the workaround for that. But so each day, the person that's using the software and listening for all the people asking for a recommendation, they're going to go in and pop in that same list that same day, all the new fresh user IDs that they found. So that each day, all the people asking for advice now goes into your advertising campaign hopper through this custom audience that you set up for the purpose, okay? The next is you actually seem spontaneous with your advertising. So you're going to actually have a newsfeed ad. You could do a sidebar ad as well. Show up for people on Facebook, on Instagram, and with that, you're going to not reference that they were looking for advice. That's creepy, all right. But you can advertise, like I said, if it's somebody looking for a club, we are the best club in Dallas, voted by da-da-da-da-da. Click on this, read our review, and then is that person? First of all, that's exactly the information they were looking for. 2, because you could have it show up 15 times to that person in the next day, within the next 24 hours before they go to the club. They asked Saturday morning, we got them Saturday afternoon, the ID, we popped into our list. They usually spend 2 hours a day on Facebook. They saw our ad 5 times. They finally gave in. They clicked on it. And they read our article. Now we got them. Respectively, you may say there's not a lot of value to that person coming in once. That's not true. A lot of businesses, once you get that new customer, right, they're going to stay with you for years potentially, especially if it's like a golfer. A golfer that finds a new course, assuming your golf course is not crap, they like it, now they're going to go 20 more times over the next 10 years. The fact that you were able to pick up that they were looking at open to that short window of time that they're looking for a new course, it pays off, $20,000 because you got them. And then so what you want to get in front of all the people that are going to be considering going to a new course in your city, most of them are local. Of course, you can do that on Google, but people don't normally type in, golf courses in Dallas. Sometimes they do, but it's more relevant. People on something like that, as you can imagine, they're going to ask their friends because they've got some friends who are also golfers. And they're more likely to do that probably I don't know the statistics on it, but then to go to Google and ask that question, and also again because they trust it more. So in that case, you can have a better result doing what I just told you here for that kind of market than you would just advertising on Google, even though, like I said, I would do both, just because there's such a small pocket of window of time and a set of people that are actually willing to go to a new course at any time. You do everything, but this will, having this might double or triple the amount of people you get. So you get where I'm going with this from the picture I'm trying to draw here. The last step is, like I mentioned before, you can do the same thing on Twitter and LinkedIn. Once you have the user's information, John Smith, then you just go look him up on Twitter, find John Smith if he has an account. Only like 3% of the population use Twitter, so you're not going to get that much added benefit by doing it, but some. Why not? If you're going to make a 10,000% return doing this on Facebook, why not get another 10% on top of that because you're doing Twitter? All you got to do on Twitter is find the user handle, which is already visible. And so when you find the person on Twitter, their equivalent account, you grab their handle, and then you put the handle in terms of a custom targeted audience on Twitter, and you could target that person too. Pretty much the same exact process. It's still through custom audiences. It's just instead of a user ID, it's through a handle of the @ and then their username. And then on LinkedIn, it's the same thing. On LinkedIn, you have to right-click View Source Code on the page. You can find the user ID that way. And then you can do the same thing over there. So why settle for, again, basically for Facebook when maybe that person's on Twitter, maybe they're on LinkedIn. Wherever they go, we'll take what we can get in terms of the opportunities to get in front of that person, influence them, and get them to buy. Don't worry about if somebody doesn't click through your ad and call or something like that, because it's meant to influence more than anything in the situations that I kind of gave, right? So, and because that person's going to buy, who gives a crap if you can't track if they're going to buy or not? There's not a ton of them, but trust me, the return is going to be there. For what you're paying, you're going to get a huge, tremendous bump in your sales by adding this as a part of your overall strategy. You don't do it all by itself. You add it to what you're doing, elsewhere too. Respectively, Google has some tracking in their advertising where it's store visits, and I believe if you're doing something like brick and mortar, like I was talking about, that some of these social networks are going to do that, and that's maybe so. I haven't checked into it recently. They may have updated that, but you can actually track things that way for like a golf course or something like that. So consider doing that as well if you want some better tracking data, because obviously looking to see if they called, that's a crappy way of tracking it. If it's a software, of course you can track if they came in and got a demo within 30 days. That'll be a little bit easier. But nevertheless, what type of companies has this to work for before that I've seen it work for? Well, first of all, restaurants and clubs both. Because it makes sense, right? The most common thing that people are going to ask for advice on is like a restaurant or club, because everybody in their network probably has one, right? So anything, if you're in a business like that where you think that the common man are using it, or like a golf course, you probably should consider using this strategy, which in fact I have used it for a golf course before. That's why I mentioned it as an example on this particular video. And I mentioned software was another place where we use this as well. If you're going to use a software, especially if it's a software dedicated to a specific industry, you're going to, because people have friends in that industry, I'm a pool builder, I have other pool builders in my Facebook list. Of course, is this pool builder CRM, customer relationship management system, worth a damn? And you're going to get an answer. People trust that more than they trust reviews on Google. They barely trust reviews on Google. They trust what their friend who already uses it said. If their friend says to use it, they're going to go with that. So, of course, if you're using the social listening software, by the way, you can actually reach out and say, hey, I'm a rep from XYZ software. You should consider ours. That's not real effective. If they would have never found it, you don't have a lot of presence online that can help. It's much more effective to do that and have your advertising show up after it. Because the repetition of the advertising makes people, it tricks them into thinking that you're a bigger authority than you are. So even though you didn't get the recommendation, you'll be in the rankings of the top 2 or 3 that they are thinking about, in that case at least. Not every time are they going to buy what they're recommending. Their friends are recommending automatically. Just like with political advertising. Why do you see politicians have their yard signs everywhere? Because it's like brainwashing. The more times that you see an advertisement, the more it seems credible. Same thing with direct mail advertising. You can't send 1 letter and have it work. If you send 7 letters, it'll work 100 times more because they don't take the initial ones seriously. But eventually, it starts to sink in to the point where they, I think I've seen this company before. Now it starts to work on the 4th one, because they saw the first 3 and they didn't take the first 3 seriously. So the repetition is everything, and it's also the case here. Last one is auto parts. So I used to sell performance auto parts as my business a long time ago. But in the particular case that you have like an auto parts store, the same thing would apply there as well, because you have friends. It's just showing how diverse the strategy is. You have friends that you go to car meets or whatever. You have friends that also like cars and buy auto parts. And you can ask them if a K&N cold air intake is good or should I buy something else that's for a cold air intake. And with that, you can have your custom audiences that you're going to set up with the user IDs. Have one, if somebody's asking about a cold air intake, you can have one if they're asking about an exhaust. You can have one asking about if they're asking about rims, assuming you sell all of these different things. So for an e-commerce seller, to be effective, that's what you need to do. Because if I ask for about a cold air intake and I see an ad for auto accessories were awesome, it's not relevant enough to work. You have to be super relevant to exactly what they asked for you to expect it to work. But it's easy to do. You just have to bucket it out, separate custom audiences for each. And of course, each custom audience is tied to a different campaign. That campaign has ad copy that talks about how your air intake are the best air intakes that you can buy on the market. And yes, we sell them as well, that kind of thing. So anyway, that's the whole thing in a nutshell. Hope you enjoyed the video. I have a ton of other videos on this channel about different other PPC money-making strategies. If you'd like to learn more, you can watch my other videos. I have a blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build campaigns like this. Step-by-step, in which we have to guarantee results for our clients, and so you can see the insight on how I do things here at our firm, in case you're interested there. If you have any questions or comments about this strategy, leave me a comment down below. I get back to every single person that leaves me a question or comment on this channel within a day or 2. But hope this inspired you to do something on your own and see similar results and success with your campaigns coming up.